Comics Plus, what is going on? My name is Akasan. How you guys doing? All right, you might be getting this video on YouTube next year. I don't know. It depends on how many videos I can dump out as quick as possible, because some people just may not watch it. But I thought this was an interesting article that I came across here. The Snyder Cut. We love talking about the Snyder Cut here. Actually, let's go with this one. The Snyder Cut costs Warner Brothers at least $70 million, but it may be Zack Snyder's final DC project. The 4-hour HBO Max limited series is described as a storytelling cul-de-sac. Fans of Zack Snyder rejoiced earlier this year when it was announced that Warner Brothers was giving the filmmakers a budget to fulfill the Snyder Cut. I got a song for that. Actually, technically, wouldn't it would be more or less like, there you go. All right. Of Justice League, the upcoming HBO Max project may be a swan song for the man who kicked off the DCEU in earnest. But, you know, to be fair, just the fact that they're saying it may be a swan song instead of being an actual swan song gives the people hope. All right. While it's previously been rumored that Warner Brothers invested a large sum of money into letting Snyder complete his version of Justice League, the New York Times confirms the new project cost WB at least $70 million. Snyder was just about able to begin production on Justice League when Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice hit theaters and was savaged by critics, leading Warner Brothers to rethink the original plan for Snyder's Justice League. Plans were altered on the fly, and although filming was completed, they intended to reconvene for some additional photography to finish the movie. But Snyder left Justice League in the early stages of post-production to attend a personal tragedy, and Warner Brothers brought in Joss Whedon, who cameoed in Wonder Woman 1984, to write a considerable number of new scenes and direct extensive reshoots on the project. The theatrical released version was essentially a film with no author, as Warner Brothers tried to steer the superhero team up to something lighter in tone while still constrained by what was originally shot and crafted via visual effects. Booyah. The Snyder Cut, then, is Snyder using extensive post-production tools and a couple of days of additional photography to adjust his footage to something more in line with his original vision, and will be released as 4 one-hour installments on HBO Max. Jesus Christ. It may also get some kind of theatrical exhibition, man. Yo, I really want to see this movie, a theatrical version. A 4-hour movie. Oh, damn, dude. I'm not even saying that in like I'm hyped about it. It's more or less like I really want to see some people sit through a 4-hour movie like that and tell me it's amazing. But it sounds like, because look, I'll be the first to admit, rewatching Endgame. What was Endgame? Endgame was what? Hey Siri, what is the runtime of Avengers Endgame?
The runtime of is
3 hours. 3 hours and 1 minute. That'd be 3,000. It's like 3 hours, and I'll be the first to admit it's really hard to rewatch Endgame. In fact, the last time I watched Endgame was last year, because the whole snap. Infinity War was fun as hell, doing the whole countdown to the snap. But I I had to start around 9:30 or something like that, right? No, that doesn't make sense. Maybe it makes sense. I don't know. Whatever. I start around 9 o'clock or something like that in order to get that snap. My girlfriend fell asleep because we were drunk as hell. Fell asleep. It was really hard to keep up. Like, I'll be the first to admit that in-game, after a while, does not hold up unless you watch it back to back with, like, other movies. So, and even then, I'm not going to watch it, like, 4-hour cut of it. So, I'm very curious about that. Wow. In the same New York Times report, which profiles DC Films head Walter Hamada and outlines this... Wait, I thought he got fired. Is that somebody else? Okay, and outlines the studio's plans for DC adaptations going forward. It is revealed that Snyder is not part of the new DC Films blueprint for now, with executives describing the Snyder Cut as a storytelling cul-de-sac, a street that leads nowhere. In other words, the Snyder Cut will certainly be closer to Snyder's original vision for Justice League, but is not expected to kick off storylines for Ben Affleck's Batman, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, or Henry Cavill's Superman that will be continued in future films. Says who? Because you can suddenly greenlight Wonder Woman 3 like that, but we can't get a Man of Steel 2? Just a side note. Indeed, when Snyder was hand-selected by Warner Brothers, producer Christopher Nolan to reboot Superman with Man of Steel, he began laying the groundwork for an interconnected DC extended universe. Batman v Superman introduced the major DC players and hinted toward the supervillain Darkseid, and Justice League was intended to be the first half of a larger story that would be continued into Justice League Part 2, as Snyder produced the other singular adventures like Wonder Woman and The Flash. That all kind of got waylaid after Warner Brothers saw the reaction to Batman v Superman and was spooked, as the studio then took more control over the individual films. I will say, I'm not a huge fan of Snyder's uber dark Batman v Superman. I would have much rather seen his unfiltered vision for Justice League than the neuter version we eventually got, and part of me is still curious what the DCEU would have looked like had he been able to stick to his plans and build the Darkseid in Justice League 2. But for now, it appears as though the Snyder Cut will be more of a proper goodbye than a starting point for anything more. As it should be. As it should be, and I'm not saying that in a bad terms, I'm not saying that in a bad way. But honestly, I just feel like this is what it needed to be, is people were just really curious, and rightfully so, and Zack Snyder's hardcore fans really, they knew that there was something out there. It was never really finished, but there was some sort of cut out there. And I think that's the way it should be, is that something like this needs to be released. As I mentioned many times, I've mentioned already, if they weren't going to re-release the Snyder Cut theatrically, then at least do it in comic book form. Sell some comics, mother. And at least so people can actually see how the story ends, or at least how this particular story was going to finish up, right? They did it with Smallville. We still see the adventures of Clark and his Superman days in comic book form. I feel like that's always going to be the best route to go, because it's obvious that Snyder's version was not working with the box office numbers. Outside of Wonder Woman, just most of what's been released with the DCEU has done fantastically well. All things considered, outside the pandemic and things like that. More people are on par of course for where DC is headed, and more people are excited about it. I mean, the Batman trailer did crazy numbers, and people are like actually excited about this Batman. So it's crazy to hear regular people talking about this Batman, whereas when for whatever reason, when Batman v Superman came out, just regular people were not feeling it. It was very interesting when those trailers were coming out. Nobody was like, and it's weird, and I don't know if that has something to do with the contrast of color and the way trailers are presented, because I also felt the same way about when The Amazing Spider-Man came out. I personally, I was like, okay, they're doing something different. I can respect that, but it was really interesting. You can always tell when it comes to like the general audience and things like that. And you know, some people say that's not who these movies are for. No, you are way off course if you don't think these movies are for the general audience. That's the main people they need to be attracting. And it very similar to The Amazing Spider-Man. When those trailers came out, for whatever reason, people were not feeling them. Comic fans were like, oh, finally we get a Spider-Man that's cracking jokes and all that, right? But I remember people were parents were coming up to me asking me, is this movie good to take my kids to? I'm talking about The Amazing Spider-Man. Like, is this movie for kids? Like, are my kids going to enjoy this? It looks really dark. And I feel like maybe that's kind of the same what was happening with BVS and even with Justice League. It was a little too late with this incarnation of the DCEU. It wasn't popping for a good amount of people. So it's quite interesting. It's quite interesting how this works. But getting back to the Snyder Cut, I do believe that this is a great way. The Snyder Cut, it's like basically saying no more excuses. This is it. This is it. Let's get the Snyder Cut out so we can all stop talking about the Snyder Cut. And obviously, yes, you are going to have a vocal minority of people that are going to keep on wanting Snyder to be involved with DC to some extent. But like I'm saying, that's not the direction that DC is going. AT&T knows that the Snyder Cut has a very vocal sort of point. But when it comes to where Warner Brothers wants to go with their movies and the DC films, that's not that direction, because they've already gone through this process, and it wasn't working from the beginning. Even with Man of Steel, whatever Snyder likes putting out and his particular vision is just not clicking on a basis of trying to make billion-dollar movies here. And as we have seen with like Aquaman and the Joker, there's just other ways of doing it that is working. So we'll see. We'll see but I feel like this is the best way. Let's just see. Put it out, see what's up, and you know, who knows? Maybe, I doubt it, but maybe this 4-parter thing will just be that popular. Will turn up numbers, will do even bigger than Wonder Woman 1984 on HBO Max, that maybe AT&T would like to invest in some direct to HBO Max type of stuff. Snyderverse, the entire Snyderverse, the Snyder world on HBO Max. I'm down with that. Theatrical releases, not so much. And right now, maybe the pandemic is the best thing, you know, for the world of Snyder to exist on HBO Max. It's always interesting. It's very curious. I'm very curious to see how deep this rabbit hole will go. But in terms of on the big screen, nah, not really. Well, Red Nation, stand up, speak up. Tell me what you guys think. It looks crazy, I know, because everybody in the comments are like, you're like, yo, your fan base, Akasan, on Twitch. What's up with your followers? They just hate everything. Aquaman was good. What are you talking about, Shark Theory? No. You guys are crazy. Let me know what you guys think, and we'll talk to you on the next one. Please.